Story 1. I am more frightened of being ill for an extended period, suffering, or being a burden to my family before I pass away. I witnessed a family member die after a prolonged battle with cancer. I have also seen older relatives whose children had to bathe and care for them or place them in nursing homes for years before they passed away. I genuinely hope I die from a sudden accident or a stroke or heart attack, rather than experience a prolonged decline or require someone to assist me with personal care. Story 2. I am terrified. I can't comprehend the emptiness. It makes me spiral when I focus on the idea. Story 3. Not of death itself, but more the way it will happen. Also, knowing that I won't be with my wife or children ever again scares me. Story 4. No, it's basically the only thing apart from birth that every human on Earth experiences at some point. It's nothing to be scared of. I had been dead for billions of years before I was born and had not suffered the slightest inconvenience from it. Story 5. Of course not. I did not fear the time before my existence. Why would I fear a return to non-existence? On the other hand, the process of dying can be unpleasant and frightening. Story 6. As an overthinker, I despise the thought of being unaware. People often tell me that I shouldn't worry about the possibility of nothingness since I won't be self-aware or capable of thought to acknowledge it. But that's what terrifies me now. I enjoy consciousness, and it's incomparable to sleep because it feels like eternity. An awful thought. Story 7. I am scared of certain types of death. Drowning is the biggest fear for me, followed by poison and mechanical asphyxiation. I also prefer not to be killed intentionally. I know death is inevitable. I am just doing my best to avoid the ones I consider the worst. Story 8. Absolutely not. The more you live, the more you realize that death isn't the most tragic thing that can happen to someone. Story 9. More than death, I am scared of being forgotten. Most of all, I fear losing those I hold dear. Story 10. Yes, I am terrified, and I would do anything to live. If I had the option to live forever, I would take it in a heartbeat. I hate the thought of not existing. I feel no comfort from it like other people do. Story 11. You are all crazy. Nothing scares me more than death. I am terrified. I am envious of how many people in these comments are saying no to this question. I am not scared of dying. I am scared of being dead. Everything you ever know, everything you are, the voice inside your head, all just disappears forever. Forever is a long time. When I was young, I eased my fears by convincing myself that when I got older, I would be more accepting of death. Even now, I tell myself that one day I will come to peace with the idea. But I haven't, and I've stopped believing I ever will. I enjoy being alive, and the thought of not existing scares me endlessly. Story 12. I'm terrified because I don't know what will happen, and I fear it will happen too soon. After death, people's memories of me would be all I have left. I don't want my memory to fade away, but I know that it eventually will, making it feel like I never even existed. I don't want to die prematurely, before I experience everything I set out to. That would be such a cruel fate. Once I'm gone, everything I've ever known wouldn't matter. I commend those who can come to terms with it, but that is my greatest fear. Story 13. Death is just the next big adventure. If there is nothing after this life, then not existing anymore sounds peaceful to me. When it is my time to go, I will be ready. Story 14. Very much, mostly because of the pain, but also because I don't know what happens after, if there is something after death. Story 15. Most people romanticize dying. Beyond the pain, you would be afraid of ceasing to exist if you ever come close to it. This is because I value my life. Pain is a negative experience. Story 16. Yes, I guess it's irrational or simply my subconscious impulse to remain alive. However, I am scared of wasting my life. I am terrified of the thought of getting old and not having done anything worthwhile. Story 17. I'm not necessarily afraid of death. I'm more afraid of how I would die. I fear dying violently. Story 18. No, because I put my trust in Jesus. Why? Jesus said he came from heaven, called God our Father, said he would give up his life for our salvation, and be raised from the dead. The evidence is that he did die on the cross, and he was indeed raised from the dead. If he told the truth about his resurrection, I believe he also told the truth about everything else. His disciples, who were eyewitnesses of these events, willingly died horrible deaths, claiming these truths until the end. Many people are ready to die for what they believe in, but there is no record of people willingly dying for something they claimed they saw but knew was false, especially on the scale of early Christianity. So that's enough evidence for me to know my faith is reasonable. On top of that solid foundation is the experience of a personal relationship with God. Jesus is my Lord, Savior, and God, because I put my trust in him. He is with me always, in this life and forever after. I don't know what the afterlife is like, but I know I'm going to where my Lord is. Story 19. Nope. At worst, it's like before you were born, and at best, if you were good, you go to heaven or reincarnate into something better. I don't believe in hell. I don't care what any religion says. If there was a God who decided anyone deserved hell, I believe that someone so sadistic would have put us in a much crueler world than we are already in. As far as the thought of, I could die tomorrow, I'm so scared. I don't really know what else to say. That's why you have to be happy now and live life to the fullest. You could get hit by a truck tomorrow, so you better start trying to make the best of it today. I also don't ever get that feeling of, why are we here? What is my purpose? That's a whole other issue. It sucks because I have a sibling who ponders these thoughts so deeply that she becomes extremely depressed. It's hard trying to give her comfort or an answer because I truly don't worry about death or focus on the why questions. Story 20. No, I just pray for a peaceful death. No pain, nothing traumatic or horrible. I just want to go to sleep and not wake up. Story 21. Depends on the day and how I'm feeling. If it's going to be slow and painful, I'm not interested. If it's quick and mostly painless, I don't have strong feelings either way. I know I still have a sense of self-preservation because I feel the weight of my firearm and I ride my motorcycle safely most of the time. But I don't really care about what happens to me after I die. It won't be my problem because I'll be dead. I do have a living will, though. It includes details about my funeral, cremation, where to scatter my ashes, who receives my belongings, and a warning that if anyone misgenders or deadnames me during the service, I will haunt their families for generations. Story 22. Yes, because of the unknown. Not knowing when or how it will happen or what the afterlife will be like. Story 23. Though most will probably say otherwise, I think many people fear death at some level or at least the process of dying. Story 24. Not my own. I worry about the death of others, though. One of my favorite YouTubers is currently ill. They should get better, but they are very unique, and there is no one else to replace them. Story 25. Personally, I am not. To me, it represents freedom from all of this. I have 2 children, and I hope that when the time comes, they can stand on their own so no one can step on them, even if I am not around. Story 26. If not for my daughter, I would have already experienced it. The only thing I am afraid of is her being here without me. Story 27. One can die well or easily, or one can die slowly or harshly. Enduring suffering is what most of us rightly dread, although fear would be an ignorant response. Most of us will suffer for several months to a year before dying, but longer severe suffering is possible, though not normal. The most common causes of death: cancers, organ failure, stroke, and heart disease. Progress for 1 to 5 years before death, but real incapacitation generally occurs at the end of life, or life ends suddenly with little suffering. There are cases of extreme suffering or the slow ending of degenerative diseases like dementia, but statistically these are not particularly common. Most of us will die either peacefully one day at home or suddenly due to health crises like heart attacks with few complications. Life is precious, and its ending is certain. Enjoy your life and try not to waste too much of it. Story 28. No. This has been a significant controversy with my parents, who are anxious about the apocalypse. They attempted to create a plan for how I would reach them to stay safe. I told them I would be running straight into danger. I don't believe the apocalypse will happen, but I have lived a life I am happy with. If my options were death or suffering, I would choose death. It is something I came to terms with some time ago. I would love to keep living, but if I were to die, I feel I have shared enough love in this life to consider my life well lived. Story 29. Not anymore. I had two near-death experiences. I have to say that dissociation and the out-of-body experience alleviate the pain quickly. When I have to go, I will, and it will be okay. Story 30. Once I am gone, my daughter will have no one. She will be mostly alone in this world, like I was. It terrifies me to think of her having to struggle as I have. This is the only thing that scares me about death. Hopefully, once she is older, that fear will ease some. Story 31. I'm not religious, but I wouldn't consider myself a staunch atheist or even agnostic. I have no idea about the afterlife, which feels as daunting as the thought of becoming nothing. I also have real concerns like the possibility of dying slowly and experiencing the body shutting down one organ at a time. I worry about the effect my passing would have on my loved ones. Despite these thoughts, it doesn't consume me. I just don't want to die. I know it will happen eventually, but for now, I feel indifferent. Story 32. I am afraid of pain and leaving anyone who I feel still needs my support. But I am not afraid of death itself. I love sleeping. So it actually sounds like a wonderful experience. Story 33. Once you gain esoteric knowledge and begin learning about alchemical ascension, you realize that death is when you truly awaken. Story 34. Scared? Not really. I am just not in a hurry to do it again. I am super careful about protecting my head now. Wear a helmet and be careful, kids. Story 35. Not at all. Death is part of the cycle. None of us will escape it, and none of us knows when or how it will happen. Living in the present moment and not projecting a future we cannot control helps significantly. A life of spiritual questioning that has shaped my beliefs also contributes to this acceptance. Overall, I am at peace with death, my own and that of others. Story 36. I am not afraid of death. It is a natural process that the body is designed to undergo. I am terrified of what comes after, though. I believe there is something, but I do not know what it is. Story 37. No, it is a cycle. The older I grow, the more I know. Love never dies, and the love I have planted will blossom for generations. I will always have a positive impact on this world we call home. Story 38. More excited about it than scared. I don't know what happens when we die, but I like to think it will be more peaceful than this. Story 39. I used to be in a different place. One day, I had an overdose while using drugs. They said I wasn't breathing for about 15 minutes. The ambulance arrived in time and administered Narcan. I woke up in the emergency room. When I opened my eyes, everything looked kind of gray and dull. Even when I went outside to catch a ride home, the green leaves, which would normally be vibrant, didn't stand out. Took a few days to feel normal again. If there is something beyond this life, I didn't see it. I have heard stories of individuals who say they saw a light or heard beautiful music or noises. Nothing like that for me, as I was in a state of overdose. That's probably why I didn't experience anything. I believe there is something beyond human understanding, but I trust that the universe will provide. So far, so good. I have been mostly sober, enjoying a joint every now and then. I have an easy job with benefits. The universe has indeed provided. Story 40. I was scared of it for a long time, but after my metastatic or terminal diagnosis, I have learned to come to terms with it. I still fear it a little, but not as much. There are several books that describe the actual process and what it looks like, and I have now seen a few friends go through it, so it's less frightening. It has also helped me, and I hope this helps, to realize that most doctors do everything they can to minimize pain in the last weeks or months. I take prescription opioids to alleviate tumor and nerve pain, and my palliative care doctor listens to my concerns and is very responsive. There is no need to suffer unnecessarily. I have had friends spend their last days beautifully surrounded by family and friends, with music, at home, and quietly slip away. Of course, it's not always like that, but it doesn't have to be miserable either. As for what happens afterward, I have no idea, but I can't help thinking it must be something like sleep or general anesthesia. Both are very pleasant and restful experiences. To die is different from what anyone supposed, and luckier. Walt Whitman. Story 41. No, because we return to the same place we were before birth. That SpongeBob purgatory where all the words come out. Story 42. Answer. No. Reason. Existential spiritual revelation. All the matter that composes our existence has always been present and will continue to exist long after our consciousness has run its course. For me, there is a great deal of comfort in that. It all makes sense. Story 43. I fear death mostly for the people I will leave behind, my wife and my children. I am not a great man, but I am a good man, and I know they need me. Additionally, I want to see their lives. Story 44. No. I'm ready to finally rest. I'm tired of constantly being put through difficult times. But someone needs me more than I need my own relief. So I stay and wait. Story 45. The older I get, the less afraid I am. My only concern has been my children that I would be leaving behind. I never wanted them to be left without a mother. I wanted to raise them. Now that they are older and almost self-sufficient, I'm more at peace with death if it should happen. I'm not ready, but I am at peace. Story 46. No, I am not afraid of death because I believe that our souls can be redeemed by the blood of Jesus Christ. Romans 6 verse 23 says, For the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life in Jesus Christ, our Lord. God promises eternal life if we believe in His name and follow His commandments. That gives me hope. Story 47. No, I left my body during an alcohol poisoning incident in college. I know that we do not die, we go on forever. Our bodies die, but they should be viewed as portrayed in the movie Avatar. They are machines that we move around in. You never die. Story 48. No, I died in 2002. I hovered above my body. The peace I felt cannot be experienced inside our bodies. I thought I had to return to raise my baby, but now I believe it was to save my granddaughter. She overdosed last year and I brought her back. There was no panic or fear. I just did what I needed to do to restart her breathing. While I am not afraid of dying, losing someone I love and being unable to help is my greatest fear. I know where I go when I die, but I cannot say that I know where everyone goes when they die. Story 49. I faced a near-death experience. I have a terminal illness, and I fear it depends on how I live. I know I have changed my lifestyle, and I do not want a repeat of that when my time comes. Story 50. I prefer to focus my energy on making the most of the time I have left rather than worrying about things I cannot change. Story 51. Does the possibility of dying early and leaving my young children with disabilities behind scare me? Yes. Am I afraid of death in general? Absolutely not. I used to be afraid of death when I was an atheist. Story 52. I'm afraid of dying, yes, but I am not afraid of death itself. I believe in the afterlife, which is a beautiful place. If I am wrong and it doesn't exist, then I won't know it. Story 53. I was never afraid until I had children. In fact, I just had a dream that I was terminally ill, and both my girlfriend and my son were by my side, crying as I slowly withered away. I woke up with tears rolling down my face. I need to watch him grow into a man. Story 54. I fear failure, not death. I worry about dying before I can leave my mark on the world. After that, I am good pretty much whenever. Story 55. No more than I fear the sunset or sunrise. It is part of life, so I see no point in fearing it. For me, its primary purpose is to lend perspective. To know that everything we experience, whether good or bad, is finite, and because of that, it should all be relished. Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. Yet, everything only happens a certain number of times. Only a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood? An afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being you can't even conceive of life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more. Perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20. And yet, it all seems limitless. Story 56. I believe in the fabric of the universe and that we will eventually return to it. No energy is created or destroyed. It is simply transformed. If you believe in souls, they can be seen as a type of energy. I would like to think we are a form of energy that returns to the fabric of spacetime after experiencing everything we need in order to move on to a higher plane of existence for greater learning. Story 57. Not anymore, not really. I was very afraid of it until I tried magic mushrooms. I left my body behind and felt my soul detach. That was the difference between life and death. I felt light, free, and completely at ease. Story 58. I am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of intense physical pain. I hope that I can die peacefully if at all possible. Story 59. Pain and suffering, both physically and emotionally. I enjoy life. I do not want it to end. The food, drink, music, friends, family, entertainment, pets, hobbies, naps, and warm spring and fall days are things I will miss. Story 60. This is something that has come and gone in my mind over the course of my life. Some days I am terrified of the thought, and other days I feel at peace with it. Ultimately, I am only afraid that I won't have accomplished everything I set out to do in this time and place. I strive to create genuine relationships, leave a lasting impact on the people I love, and maintain a positive mindset each day. Story 61. Yes, because I am not religious enough to think there is a heaven. I like to believe there is one, but I honestly do not know. And that is what scares me. The fact that I have no idea if I even believe in my own religion. If I do, what if I am following the wrong one? What if I go to hell for questioning or for something bad I did? I do not know. It is just scary. Story 62. I'm not afraid of being dead. I'm afraid of dying. I've seen many times how long and painful it can be, not just for the dying person but also for those who care for them. I definitely don't want to be one of the slow kickers. Ideally, my motorbike would explode while I'm relaxing toward the evening sun and take me out in one clean blast. But being dead? Nah, it will be like before my birth. What truly frightens me is that people I hold dear could just expire in an instant without me being able to do anything about it. That is genuinely horrifying. Story 63. It is inevitable. I can't avoid it much. I've done about all I've ever really wanted to in life, just trying to enjoy what I can while I'm here. No complaints if I'm not here tomorrow, though, you know? Story 64. I'm not afraid of dying. Any time will do. I don't mind. Why should I be frightened of dying? There's no reason for it. You've got to go sometime. Story 65. I am afraid of any suffering that may precede my death, such as chronic pain or illnesses that won't kill you but could make your life miserable. Story 66. Yes, because I feel weak. I have witnessed many people die in tragic ways that I can hardly fathom. My dad battled cancer 5 times. I would give up right away. The thought of death also terrifies me. I can induce a panic attack just by sitting and trying to comprehend what it feels like to not exist. It's akin to my own personal blue screen of death. Story 67. My mother always told me, the only things I have to do are pay taxes and lay down and die. The former is unpleasant, so how bad could the latter be? Story 68. Death is natural. Dying is part of life. I notice that when things are looking up for me with opportunities and everything, I get scared I might end up in an accident or worse, and be gone just as things are getting good. For context, I'm 24. Inherently, I'm not afraid of death. Everyone dies, has died, or will die in one way or another. Story 69. I believe everyone experiences fear in some way. Death is not only at the end of life. It is present everywhere and at all times. Story 70. I yearn for sweet release daily. However, I will enjoy the time until then if the world and all of its troubled individuals will allow me. Story 71. No, I don't fear death. It's actually pleasing to know that all of this ends at some point. However, I do fear the process of dying. The thought of pain and suffering that comes with diseases like cancer or losing myself to something debilitating like dementia absolutely terrifies me. Story 72. When we die, we don't feel, we cease, and there is calm in that idea. Dying, I hope that adrenaline kicks in, followed by the DMT. Story 73. I am scared of the pain and worried it will happen too soon. But mostly I am sad I will miss out on seeing some of my son's life. The alternative is him dying first, so I cannot be too picky here. Story 74. As a child, I often fainted due to various health issues. When you wake up from that experience, it's like a reboot. You are not present. Death is similar in that you cease to exist. You do not feel anything anymore. It is simply a hard stop. The vertigo associated with this concept can be quite striking, but it is a reality. What frightens me the most is the thought of not being able to see my son grow up. Story 75. It's not that I'm afraid. It is more that there is so much unknown about what occurs in the process of death, which is a little worrying. It would be nice to not have to worry about paying so much money all the time. Story 76. Only early death. I wish to see my children grow up, get married, and start their own lives before that visitor comes knocking. Story 77. At 2 a.m., my mind wakes me up with fears of what if, projecting the wreckage of my future and ending all hopes of returning to sleep. Story 78. Yes, if more people were better informed about the experience of dying, they would live in a state of constant existential terror. Being trapped in a dying body that no longer reacts to the pain and agony you are experiencing, while reliving your life in fast forward, as your brain searches desperately through your memories, in a futile attempt to find anything that might help it save itself. You lose your sense of balance and time as you fall through darkness and agony for what will seem like eternity before the last of your brain's electrical current shorts out, all while being overwhelmed by stress hormones in reaction to your extreme suffering. Story 79. If it's Death from Sandman, no. If it's Pete from Mickey's Christmas Carol, then yes. If you mean actually dying, it depends on how I die. Immolation and drowning are said to be horrific ways to die. As long as it's quick, I guess I wouldn't mind. Story 80. I beg for it, yet it will not come. What could I have done that was so terrible? I am punished with life. Story 81. I am not afraid of death, but I am concerned about leaving my family behind and not being here anymore. My son has a disability, and I am worried about the impact it would have on him. I am a registered nurse and a former palliative care nurse, which has shaped my views on death. Story 82. No. I think it will be a sweet relief from this world. I hope so anyway, but who knows? I will probably have to live another difficult life after this one. Story 83. Everyone is going to die eventually. There is nothing to fear. I believe in God and the afterlife, so that helps. Story 84. I have bipolar disorder, and life is extremely painful. There is joy, but I think about suicide at least once a week, if not every day. I hope that when it comes, it is quick and I can pass peacefully. I have lived to the best of my ability, but I am ready to go. Story 85. Judging by my family genetics, I am fairly certain it will be cancer. I am not looking forward to it, and I suppose that makes me feel scared. Story 86. I am concerned because it feels so final. We don't know what happens after death, but I don't like the idea of simply ceasing to exist for all eternity. Story 87. There is no need to be afraid. You could die in your sleep and not know it. However, I dislike the idea of lingering and waiting for something if it is terminal. Personally, I would prefer that it happens quickly. As for the afterlife, who knows? I tend to have a spiritual mindset, but heaven must be quite crowded. Story 88. No, the reason behind it is that we will all pass when it is our time. If you asked whether I want to die, I would say no, but I understand that my time will come at some point. Story 89. Yes, mainly because of the pain of dying, but also the fact that it is game over. I have experienced everything I will ever experience, and there is no do-over. The pressure of this being our only chance to exist makes living harder than death, though. Story 90. Personally, I am not really afraid of death, but I can see that I am scared of what I will be leaving behind, especially the people and things I love. Story 91. Not so much about death, but about what I will leave behind. My wife and child, with one more on the way. I worry whether they will manage and thrive without me, and if my absence will create more problems. Story 92. I have children. Some are adults, but I have one still at home. The thought of dying scares me because I worry about what would happen to them. I believe I need to keep going for at least another 15 years to put my mind at rest. As for my beliefs, I do think there is something beyond this life, not in a religious sense but more logically. When I reach that point, I believe I will reunite with my father. Story 93. Not at all. It's the one thing that nobody can escape. We all end up meeting at the finish line, or whatever delusional statement was made. Story 94. No, I am not afraid of death. How can you fear it when you know it takes the best and leaves people like me behind? Death has taken great individuals and loved ones like my mom, but it didn't take me, a lonely, tired, aimless person. So why should I be afraid? I worry that I will live long enough to see everyone I care about die, rather than letting me go and not ruining their lives with my miserable existence. Story 95. No, everyone is afraid of death, but it is something we all must face. I once heard an idea that went something like this. Why fear death? What if your current state is similar to being in a cocoon, and death is like transforming into a butterfly? Just because something is unknown doesn't mean it has to be frightening. Could be a positive experience, we simply don't know. Our fear often stems from the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Story 96. Because I realized I am not proud of my life just yet. I have a lot of work ahead of me before I can claim that as true. It is more of a hopeful outlook. Story 97. Yes, I was raised Christian, and while I no longer believe in that, it's difficult to completely banish the fear of dying and going to hell, even though I know that idea is nonsensical. Story 98. Not really. I assume it is decades away. I also believe in some form of positive life after death. Story 99. I am religious, but sometimes I am unsure if heaven or God exists. I have heard conflicting information from many sources, which can be maddening. Religion is both wonderful and confusing. Story 100. Dying is inevitable, so when it is my time, it is no big deal. That does not mean I will not try my best to stay alive, though. Story 101. I used to be extremely scared of it. Now that I'm over the hill and have suffered from 3 decades of insomnia, I could use the rest. Story 102. I am more afraid of living a life without agency, where I cannot be engaged in my interests and creativity. A quick death does not scare me. A slow death, where I cannot enjoy myself or engage in creative acts and am just biding my time until my body finally gives out, is truly terrifying. Story 103. No, because I believe in God and that I will be taken back to Him and live in the afterlife. Hopefully, in my life here, I manage to be a good person, even if just a little bit. Death doesn't scare me as it used to in the past, because I feel reassured now. Story 104. I overcame my fear at 21. I was day drinking vodka out of water bottles with friends while walking a trail called Indian Seats in Georgia. It dawned on me that I could fall and it would just be over, and I felt a strange peace about it. I felt like I had a really good run, and if it ends, it ends. But obviously, I am trying to make a good run of it. Story 105. In a sense, yes. The great unknown. Is there anything after? What happens to my family and my pets? Will I have mattered at all? What if my body dies but my mind lives on, just lying forever in a lonely box? I suppose it's just the idea that we know nothing about it other than we cease to exist here. Story 106. No, not at all. I have experienced it before. It was extremely brief, but I remember what happened, and it has brought me immense peace in life. Story 107. It is not so much death itself that scares me, but rather the unknown. For instance, when will I die? Tomorrow? Next week? A month? A year? Also, what will my situation be? Will it be due to old age, a terminal illness, or self-harm? Will I be alone or with my family? Will I have had the chance to watch my children grow up? Story 108. Yes, I'm scared. If there is just nothing, then everything I do now and everything I will accomplish will be for nothing. Story 109. I can't bear to think about how my adult children will feel. My daughter would have a breakdown. However, I am not afraid of dying. Story 110. Used to feel this way as a kid, but not anymore. I faced death too many times to be scared. It's like before you were born, there was nothing. The only issue I have is that I won't be able to enjoy what I enjoy now or what I'll miss out on in the future. Honestly, I miss my childhood, and that bothers me more than death. Maturing takes the adventure out of life. It's not that life can't be fun, but it's not the same. Story 111. Yes, not terrified but scared. I want to live. Life is the only opportunity we have to enjoy everything. Story 112. No. Death comes for us all eventually. There is no point in fearing the inevitable. I only fear what would become of those who depend on me if I pass unexpectedly. Story 113. I wouldn't say I'm scared, but at times the thought of not existing anymore is unsettling and a little anxiety-inducing. I am more afraid of having a violent death. Story 114. I do not like the thought of my own death at all, but the thought of watching the people I love the most meet their deaths scares me much more. Story 115. Not the being dead part, just the dying. If you have ever been seriously injured, you can appreciate how scary it is, how much it hurts, and how humiliating it can be to be saved. Story 116. Not that I wouldn't know anything about it. What I really dislike is the pain it would cause my loved ones, especially if they had to see me like that. I would also like a feature on my smartwatch that automatically triggers a full wipe of my internet history if my heart rate drops to 0, just in case the last thing I searched for was unwise, which it probably would be. Story 117. The people saying no here astonish me. I genuinely cannot think for too long about my death, or I start to feel an anxiety attack. Your consciousness just stops suddenly for the rest of eternity, and you are okay with that? Story 118. Scrolled for a while and didn't read the first response that came to my mind. Death can have me when it earns me. Story 119. Trigger warning. Discusses suicide attempt. I have a genetic disorder that leaves me in crippling, agonizing pain every day of my life. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, hypermobile type, moderate to severe. When not in a flare, I experience 20 to 40 joint dislocations or partial dislocations, called subluxations, a day. Just because I have them constantly does not mean they hurt any less for me than for someone experiencing a dislocation for the first time. It always hurts. My body is constantly in a state of fight or flight. In 2014, I decided I was done. I had written my goodbyes and was in the process when I realized that if I took that step, my then 17-year-old son, who has obsessive-compulsive disorder, would follow me. If he did that, it would be highly likely that his brother would follow him. I couldn't do that to my kids, so I've hung on, but that has had a tremendous impact on my life. I love horror movies, but was always terrified of them. Now I can watch anything, and the only things that get me are jump scares. The only thing that truly scares me is something happening to my kids or my loved ones. I know where I'm going and who I'll meet when I get there, and every night I pray it's the night I go. I feel like I can't get there fast enough. The life expectancy of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is 48, and I'm now 51, so I'm ready. My kids know that if we can't get my pain under control, I might check out early, and they are coming to grips with it. They are now 24 and 27. Do I want to leave them? No. But my pain is almost never below an 8 now, and sometimes I just can't take it. I literally wake up screaming most nights. Imagine what that's like for my son, who is my caretaker, listening to his mother waking herself up screaming in pain. It's killing him too. Story 120. It's not the fall that kills you. It's the sudden stop at the end. That being said, death is inevitable. One day, I may not wake up. Could be a freak car or plane crash. It might also be cancer, like how many friends and family members passed away. Personally, I am more curious about what happens afterward. Story 121. I'm scared of dying. Death, who cares? I didn't exist for billions of years, and it didn't bother me. Pain and dying are really frightening. I saw a few people die from cancer, and it was a difficult time. Story 122. I think what I'm really scared of is knowing the world will go on without me. Knowing there's so much I would miss. New games and places I could have visited. I have lived in a small town my entire life, and I'm actually terrified of dying without having explored the world. Story 123, yes and no. I fear dying too soon or unexpectedly, or even in a horrific way, but I am not afraid of death itself. Story 124, it varies. Sometimes it feels far off, while at other times it feels closer than I might think. Story 125, people often say, no, I didn't know of existence until I existed, and therefore once I'm gone, I'll be unaware of it again. In my mind, before you are born, there is a limited time leading up to your birth. You are going to be born at some point. Your life will begin at some point. After you die, there is no timer until the next stage. That's it. It's just a stopwatch that continues indefinitely. There's nothing more to look forward to, and that scares me. Story 126. Because, for the most part, besides bills and taxes, I enjoy life. The thought of not existing to appreciate life's simplest pleasures really scares me. I don't want that at all. Story 127. The only reason I can think of is that death is afraid of me. Given my past, there is no reason I should still be here. Yet here I am, ready for another round tomorrow. Story 128. 3 times, I have been in situations where I thought it was the end. I fell from a height but managed to catch the last possible handhold. I experienced an electric shock that left me completely locked up and unable to inhale, and I was saved by a coworker. I had a severe infection that landed me in a hospital. I thought I was done when they wheeled me down to the hospice ward, but they placed me in the first room next to it. On all 3 occasions, I remember calmly thinking, so this is how it's going to be. Story 129. Absolutely, I am mostly scared of the unknown. I dislike not knowing what is next. I hope there is some type of reunification with my family and pets. I really hope it is not just darkness. Story 130. I am just afraid of dying too young. I don't want to put the people around me in that position, and I also don't want to miss out on life, even if it ends up being difficult. Dying eventually doesn't scare me, though. Story 131. Yes, I'm terrified. I'm terrified of dying and of the people and animals I know dying. I was angry when I was 5 and my parents told me I would die one day. I was upset that they even had me. I never wanted children because I knew they would die one day. I don't want to die, and when I do, I'm worried I'll be scared. Story 132. It is the fear of the unknown that scares me most about death. I worry about what happens afterwards or for eternity and not being in control of the unknowns. Yet, it is the only certainty in life other than paying taxes. Story 133. I lost my parents as a child and don't want my child going through the same experience. I firmly believe that no one will take as good care of my family as I do. Story 134. I find the prospect of not existing to be confusing and scary. We celebrate the experience of life, and I don't think it's irrational to fear its end. This is all contingent on being fortunate enough to live a life that can be enjoyed, of course. Story 135. Death is inevitable, so I'm not afraid of it. However, I hope that when my time comes, it will be peaceful, like dying in my sleep. A prolonged illness would be frightening to endure. Story 136. I understand. However, it's not something I can control, so I don't worry about it. It happens to everyone. Story 137. I am not really scared of it. I just have experiences I want to pursue first, and I want to ensure that my loved ones will be fine after I am gone. So I suppose I feel more sad and uncertain than anything. Story 138. The pain and the length of illness, such as cancer or dementia, can be overwhelming. The unknown and the potential of living in this state of mind indefinitely can be daunting. Story 139. I'm not afraid of dying personally, but I am concerned about the idea of being without my wife in this life or any afterlife. There are far worse things than dying. Living for years with a critical illness and being a financial burden to my family is a much scarier concept to me. Story 140. I have struggled with suicidal thoughts on and off since I was a teenager. My father and cousin both took their own lives, so I know it is not an option. I cannot leave that kind of collateral damage. Death feels lighter than a feather, but the weight of responsibility and life can be crushing. Dying is finally finding rest without worry. Story 141. I don't dwell on it, but I feel it's natural to be scared of the unknown. Those who aren't are either ignorant or in denial. On the bright side, I have experienced near-death moments, and it never felt bad. Story 142. I am not afraid of death, but I definitely enjoy life and hope to live a long time. If I died tomorrow, I could be happy with how I have lived and my accomplishments. Story 143. No, I think it's because in my brain I hope it comes with a set of resolutions. I'm allowed to know 3 secrets. I'm excited about my life review and politely declining reincarnation. One time was enough. Story 144. I have thought about this for many years. I have a very large family that has always been close to one another. Even third cousins are considered close family to us. I remember my great-grandparents' funerals, the first when I was 3 and the next when I was around 6. I have lost many close family members over the last 32 years. I was also raised on a cattle farm, had many animals, and witnessed a lot of death from predation or natural causes. I even had to euthanize several myself, starting before my teenage years. Rural life is tough. I have hunted for food my entire life as well. By all means, I have become familiar with death, perhaps more than most. I do not fear how I will die, though I would like some control over that choice. I am more afraid of not being conscious any longer. Just suddenly, thoughts are gone. Family is gone. Friends are gone. Nature is gone. Everything is gone. Lights out. That terrifies me. Then again, I would not even be aware of it. Story 145. No, and I am not afraid of dying either. I know that unless something surprises me, I will be leaving this life early by choice. I refuse to let my loved ones see me suffer. It is truly hard. Story 146. Death is not desirable, but dying is a reality. I don't want it to be painful, but I imagine that after you die, you forget the pain. Story 147. I wouldn't say I am scared, but I just don't want to leave the people close to me. I hope that death isn't the end of our existence as humans. I pray that reincarnation is real. Story 148. Not afraid of death, but afraid of the pain. Both physical pain and the pain of knowing I haven't lived life to the fullest. Story 149. No, not death and not dying, but the part where I no longer exist. Oh yeah, it's the biggest feeling of fear of missing out ever. What will I miss in the future? I want to see humanity become a spacefaring species, or have cyberpunk-style modifications, or see actual flying cars become as common as smartphones. I want to witness it all. Story 150. Not really. I am concerned about my wife, who is very dependent on me, and how she would manage if I go first. For me, I think either there is no afterlife, so I won't care, or there is one, and I have led a relatively good life, so I should not end up in eternal damnation. While I have some religious beliefs, I don't strongly believe in heaven and hell. There is probably nothing waiting for me in the afterlife. If I had my way, I would be able to spend eternity with lost pets, friends, and family in that order. Story 151. I want to sit here and say, no, I don't know what happens, so I can't be scared of it. But at the end of the day, I don't know what happens, and of course, I'm scared of it. Story 152. Negative. No one should fear death unless you reject our Heavenly Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Story 153. Not so much. The vast majority of the time in the universe, I wasn't there to experience it, and I imagine it will be much the same after me. I am more afraid of the process and leaving my family and friends in a difficult position. Being locked in a coma would be my nightmare. Story 154. I have no fear of being dead. I will simply cease to exist. I am afraid of being in a very difficult situation, facing expensive medical bills and pain. Story 155. Leaving those I love makes me sad. I won't be there to see my children and grandchildren grow up, and I will miss out on so much. Story 156. What is there to be afraid of? I will not have the capacity to care, simply because I will no longer be present. Story 157. Not when I look at my mother yearning for death and her own mother. By the time you die, you will be very old and ready for a change if fate allows. Story 158. What is interesting to you? I'm not sure. What scares me is how sad those around me will be. But if you think about it, once you are dead, you are dead. So it won't matter. What terrifies me is the thought of the death of my family or children. That's horrifying. Story 159. Am I scared of dying? No, I hope it's not terribly painful for a long time, but that's not something to be really afraid of. What I'm scared of is leaving my son before he's ready for the world. Story 160. Not to be ambiguous, but yes and no. In summary, I fluctuate between being kept awake by these thoughts and believing they are inevitable and not my concern. I'm not afraid in the sense that I believe in reincarnation. I think our souls move from body to body and learn as they accumulate various life experiences. So, I am not fearful for my soul. I'm not afraid in the sense that after I'm gone, nothing will be my problem anymore. I understand that all this worrying will have been for nothing because death comes for us all. I am anxious in the sense that you can't know when, where, or how it will happen. There's no way to plan when to write your will, ensure your browser history is cleared, or make things easier for your loved ones. I'm also anxious because I'm so busy that I don't think I'll ever reach a point of peace. I can't imagine a time when I can say, I have nothing to do, or when no one is expecting anything from me. I don't want to die with unfinished projects, especially knowing there may be no one to take them over and complete them. I'm concerned that I could be wrong about reincarnation. What if it's nothingness? What if it's heaven or hell? What if this life is a strange second stage of development and we are reborn into an even higher state of existence? What if this is a simulation and we remove the headset and completely forget our spouses and children and parents? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.